Hello, let's do an Instagram Q&A, huh? A few days ago, I put a Q&A up on my Insta story, and I thought maybe we could address some of those questions here now. Just you and me, hanging out here in this hotel room, huh? All right, let's do it. What pre do you prefer and what flavor? Buff chick, buff pump, buff pre, and the sour lemon is mine. Being you have the gym you own, how much equipment do you regularly use at home? We only have 3 pieces of equipment at home. We have an elliptical, it's a Tetrix stair climber, and a stationary bike. Right now I'm only using the stationary bike. During my last prep I used the elliptical, and my husband uses the Tetrix machine. What do you think about when prep gets hard? How do you always stick to the plan? For me, it's a non-negotiable. The plan is the plan. My first prep, I was binging every weekend. It's a miracle that I was even ready for stage in time, truth be told. But I took a really long off season, like a 2-year off season. Part of that was due to COVID, but I had already pulled out of my prep before any of that started happening. And in that time I really worked on my relationship with food and how I felt about my body image, and so that really put me in a position to excel in this sport, because you have to be at a place of neutrality with both of those things in order to not let things like increased body fat percentage in the off season get to your self-esteem, and in order to not be super food focused in prep. So for me, like, food is just food. I'm at a point now where if I get like a cheat meal or like even post show, I don't want to choose foods that I know are not going to play well with my system. I want to choose foods that are like enjoyable. I want to have the experience of going out to dine with my husband, for instance, but I also don't want to wake up the next day feeling bad or having like swollen fingers and swollen ankles. So I'm at a place now where I can make those decisions, and that took a lot of self-work. It took a lot of introspection, and it took a lot of learning how to take a pause. Oftentimes, I hope that AC isn't loud and annoying to you, but oftentimes when we're stressed or emotional, it's really easy to just say F it and make a decision that is not goal aligned, and then start to feel bad about ourselves, wondering why we can't keep it together, you know, and so it just took a lot of work and a lot of you know, being present and learning how to take a breath and take a pause and really consider what's going on, which really leads us into the next question, which is how do you deal with self-sabotaging thoughts? And that is to take a pause. It usually means that I need to think things through. Either A, I'm dealing with a stressful situation or an uncomfortable emotion that I really don't want to, and I need to pull back and pay attention and address those things. Or B, for me, oftentimes I'm afraid of success, and so if I self-sabotage, then I'm not successful, and I knew that was going to happen anyway. And that's usually because I've created some kind of self-deprecating story about myself and my abilities and my potential to accomplish. And so if I self-sabotage, then I'm confirming that story that I've created about myself. So I really have to dig into why I am afraid of success. What is it that's holding me back besides myself? Dun, 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 dun. What do you do on days when protein shakes make you want to puke? Help, please. If you don't like protein shakes, then you don't need to take a protein shake. That said, I do supplement my diet daily with actually a couple scoops of protein, truth be told, and they rarely make me want to puke. A, I use a high quality isolate that tastes really good, and B, yeah, sometimes I don't necessarily just want to mix it with water, but I usually have an option where I can mix it with something. So whether that be mixing it in with cream of rice or oats or creating an egg white pancake, then I have that option available to me. Also, these supplements are shelf stable, so although it can be a little bit expensive to buy multiple products, sometimes if you can have a few flavor options available, you can decrease that hatred and that sickness that you get for having the same flavor over and over and over again. Are you competing in figure or physique? I'll be competing in both this year. I'm very much on fire for WPD. I love figure, I love the look, but I feel like WPD suits me. I hired Rachel Daniels. She's a WPD IFBB pro to be my posing coach this year, and her parting words with me after our last session together were that she can really see me excelling in WPD. So really, if I could, I'm having a hard time like putting this out on the internet, but maybe I'm just speaking it into existence, but I've watched several girls go pro in both categories, and I think that I'm capable of doing the same, and so I would like to pursue a double pro card. Which leads us into the next questions about competing. When's a good time to reach out to a coach for the first time when you want to compete? Immediately. And this is maybe a bit of personal opinion here. When I reached out to my coach, we immediately started prepping. I did like a 20 some odd week prep right out the gate. I wasn't really ready for it, but I did have a pretty solid basis of muscle. That said, if you've been in the gym for like less than 5 years, you've never really followed a diet or training protocol, and yes, I'm including training in that because your training should be structured, then you probably are not ready to just immediately jump into a diet. Yes, even after 5 years of training. So that said, find a coach who's going to jump into a building season with you and be willing to build. Tips for a first-time competitor though. Number 1, on the show day, soak in the experience. Number 2, find your why. Find a reason why you are doing this. And it can't just be content for Instagram. For me, it's a lot about proving to myself that I'm capable of doing these hard things. I've also found that it has created a platform for me to be a source of inspiration, motivation, and education for others. That said, I really dislike when people say, oh, body goals, hashtag body goals, on like any of the content that I produce, for instance, because I don't want you to look like me. I don't want you to want that for you. I want you to consider, to see the things that I do and listen to the words that I say and put them into practice in your life and see what you are capable of. Because you and I are never going to look the same. I'm never going to look like anybody else, and you're never going to look like me. And you shouldn't want that. You should want to see what you can do. Okay, but getting back on track here with the question, find a coach who is going to listen to your feedback, but likewise, don't find somebody who's going to be soft on you, because there are going to be times in this bodybuilding thing when you want to quit, when the diet is too hard, you're too tired to train, you can't seem to get yourself up out of bed to do that fasted cardio, and unfortunately, you're gonna have to. My first couple of preps were really cardio heavy, really low on carbs, but I've been consistent both in season and during the improvement season, and my coach has been able to get me to a point where I was maintaining my weight well over 3,500 calories, and I am 6 weeks out, right on track, and still have carbs in most of my meals. So this is definitely, you have to be ready for the long game with this. Ooh, this is a good one. Explaining the difference between knee versus hip flexion in terms of glute versus leg growth. So first, let's define what hip and knee flexion are. Let me get you a better angle here. So hip flexion would be the amount to which the hips are flexed, right? So this is the hips in a degree of flexion. And when we talk about degree of knee flexion, really you require ankle dorsiflexion, but it's your ability to push the knees over the toes. So when you're on a hack squat or leg press, more knee flexion is going to provide more quads, and more hip flexion is going to provide more glute. So if you're doing like a Bulgarian split squat, for instance, this is a little too high for a Bulgarian, but if I keep my torso more upright, my knee is the joint that is in the most flexion. So that means that the working leg is going to get more quad. That said, if I bounce out a little bit and push back into it, I'm going to get my knees in a greater, or my hips in a greater degree of flexion, which means that my glutes are going to provide more of the actual work. Favorite way to train muscle groups like back and bis, chest and tris. favorite way. Truth be told, I love a solid bro split. Right now for me, my delts and quads are a little bit overpowering in comparison to the rest of my physique, and my arms have a lot of catching up to do. So that means that I train arms twice a week. I train quads like half of a workout because my glutes and kind of that glute ham insertion need a lot of work. So I have that programmed twice a day. So really there's no perfect split, I guess is what I'm getting at here. You have to figure out what your physique needs to build what you want to accomplish. What to eat before a 4 a.m. workout? First of all, you're special kind of crazy if you train that early in the morning. Second of all, just get some carbs in your system. It'd be ideal to get carbs and protein into your system, but at the very least get some carbs in your system. If you have a hard time eating that early, meaning like you wake up at 3 or 3:30 to get ready for the gym, have your last meal of the day be a relatively carb heavy meal. So that way we're fueling our training sessions. That's really, like, people I think put way too much weight in meal timing. Really the only timing that you should be concerned about is fueling your workout, period. The rest of it you should really divide up according to your hunger. I eat 4 meals a day and 2 snacks, 1 pre and 1 post workout. And the only reason that that's broken up like that is because it allows me to manage my hunger. That's it. The ideal schedule/length of time in the gym, averaging 2 to 3 hours. Baby, what are you doing? You can get an extremely effective workout done in an hour and a half or less. I average an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes a little bit more. Never more than 90 minutes though, because at that time I'm just dicking around. My rest periods are entirely too long. I'm distracted, and I'm relatively disengaged by the time that hour is over. So I think that you need to either reconsider A, how much you're doing, or B, the amount of time you're spending not doing anything. Rest periods are really important, but also you shouldn't just be lollygagging. On push day, it's so hard to hit shoulders after I bench. What do I do? LOL. You have a couple options here. 1, push through it. Don't be a little baby. Number 2, separate your delts from your bench session, meaning that you have a push day where you are doing, I don't know, maybe a flat bench, an incline bench, a fly, maybe a decline, kind of depending on what your goals are, and some triceps. And then maybe you have a totally separate additional push day that is delts only, maybe touching up some triceps. Again, this depends on, like, if your primary goal is hypertrophy, it really depends on what kind of physique you're trying to build. And if your primary goal is strength, then separating that shoulder work from your strength day will allow you to get in that volume. Which leads me into another topic that I want to talk about, and I don't even know if it's addressed by any of these questions, but your training program should be periodized. It should have strength work in it because strength work is going to build dense muscle, but it should also have hypertrophy blocks in it because hypertrophy blocks are going to allow your tendons and ligaments to stretch, and it's going to increase the connective tissue. So we should be periodizing our training and having a greater focus on different training styles for different adaptations. Does that make sense? I hope so. The transition from powerlifting to bodybuilding, I think that powerlifting built me a great foundation of muscle. It allowed me to build a lot of really dense muscle, especially in my back, delts, and quads. I probably skipped out on too much hypertrophy work for my posterior chain, in all honesty, and that's why my deadlift lockout sucked when I was powerlifting. But in all honesty, it probably took me a solid year to make that full transition from powerlifting training and really focusing on strength and performance to optimizing for muscle growth. And in retrospect, I'd wish I'd done more hypertrophy work in my powerlifting days. And now I'm finding that I'm still kind of hungry for some of those strength gains. And so assuming, you know, let's say that I get a pro card this year, I will probably spend more time. I'll take a longer off season, probably another year and a half, and I'll spend probably a solid amount of that, doing more heavy compounds to really build that density and that thickness that you can't get from just isolation movements. Do I miss powerlifting? Yes. Yes, I do. I miss being strong. I miss having those badass lifts to put on Instagram. I miss having a little fear in me as I step up to the bar. Advice for a bikini competitor transitioning into figure: increase your back training frequency. You're gonna need it. Also, learn how to train heavier. I think for bikini competitors work hard, but figure competitors have a greater muscle requirement. And so I think that you have to really figure out how to build that thick, dense muscle. So take a long growing season, increase your back training frequency, and remember that like you're not really probably going to be able to see what you have built until you're shredded for the stage again. So expect to not do well at your first figure showing, and commit to continuing to grow and accepting the feedback so that you can grow into the division. Is there an alternative to hip thrust? I struggle with my form. No. Straight up, you need to have some kind of thrust or bridge variation in your program if you're trying to build glutes. Point blank period. Even if you're not trying to build glutes, even if your primary goal isn't hypertrophy of the gluteus maximus and minimus and whatever, like I said, one of my biggest regrets in powerlifting is not doing more direct glute work, because that has a direct carryover to both squat power out of the hole and deadlift lockout. So do more of the shit that you suck at. How do you stay positive when you don't see progress? I don't need to stay positive, because I also don't feel negative. You know, I train because I truly enjoy the process of training. I love going into the gym and training my freaking face off. I know that as a result of the decisions I make, because I make goal-aligned decisions, as a result, I'm going to progress. So that said, it may be time for you to reconsider some of the ways that you're marking progress, because it might not necessarily just be about seeing growth. You see your body every day when you look in the mirror, take a picture, or whatever. Of course, you're not going to notice changes day to day or even week to week, and sometimes even month to month, depending upon where your body fat is. So learn to find other progress markers, whether it be taking measurements once a month or setting some performance-based goals. That's honestly one of the biggest things I can tell you. During my off season, when I was peak bulk, maybe I'll pop a picture over here, but when I was peak bulk, I couldn't see anything because my body fat percentage was too high. But now that I'm shredding down, I can see everything that I built, and it's because I stayed in that calorie surplus for so long, and I trained in a fashion that I knew I was progressively overloading, I was recovering from my training, and that those two things combined ensure that you're going to progress. How long have you been competing? So I competed in powerlifting for 3 or 4 years, I don't remember exactly, and I have been bodybuilding since January 1st, 2019. It was not a New Year's resolution, but that was just when we made the decision to reach out to a coach. It was kind of that in-between time between Christmas and New Year's, and my husband was like, I think I would like to do a show, and I was like, sure dude, and I reached out to a coach, and you know, we filled out our intake same night, and the rest is history. I'm in love with the sport. How long have we owned our gym? We also opened that in 2019. Coincidentally, the doors opened just a few weeks before our show. I've got check-in photos where you can see in the background that some of our equipment is still in boxes, not put together yet, and the dumbbells are on the ground. Maybe I'll insert a picture of that right here too, because it's funny to me. You know, we really flew by the seat of our pants. Things were incredibly difficult, and that prep was really hard on me. I had way too much on my plate. But I think it was also really gratifying, and it was a lesson in what I'm capable of. Favorite ways to make cardio pass faster? A, disassociate. Sometimes I just be staring off into space, and next thing you know, 10 minutes have passed. B, find a good show. Find something engaging. I'm watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure during this prep. It's been really good. I'm still in season 1 because sometimes I also use that time to do social media and like engage with people with my you know, my following, like on TikTok or whatever, or I use that time to edit a video. Sometimes I'll use that time, depending on how hard the cardio is that I'm doing, I'll use that time to call people that I care about. And sometimes I just use that time to think, you know, and do some planning. What's the oddest food combination you've been eating on prep? Honestly, I don't have a lot of weird food combinations this time. I pretty much just eat what's on my meal plan, which was another question, macros or meal plan. I prefer a meal plan for several reasons. Number one, first of all, here's the thing with macros. You could take 100 calories of broccoli and 100 calories of orange juice, and it's still the same like nutritional profile, right? It's primarily a carb source. It's 100 calories, the same amount of energy, but the bioavailable energy from those two fuel sources are not going to be the same. So for me, I prefer being on a meal plan. I also don't want the headache and hassle of choosing my food sources, and B, having to plan things. I would rather be able to look at my sheet of paper, know what I need to put in my Tupperware, and be good to go. Secondly, or maybe this is thirdly, it also allows for an easier way to troubleshoot any potential digestive issues. So I know that if my only protein sources are the same isolate I've been drinking for the last while, the same cod and the same egg whites, and I start having digestive issues, we can eliminate one of those and see if that's what was causing the digestive issues. So for me, I much prefer a meal plan for bodybuilding specifically. For a lifestyle person, somebody who's just working on general physical preparedness, just trying to lose a little body fat, I think that macros are a great way to go. I kind of came up in the time of IIFYM and finding like fun replacements for fun foods like birthday cake pancakes and stuff, and I just don't know. Now, if I'm going to have a birthday cake pancake, I want it to be a real pancake, and I want to put those carbs to good use in a workout. You know what I'm saying? Feeling like I won't be big enough for my first figure show. How to deal with this? I've got really bad news. That feeling never goes away. We colloquially call it bigorexia sometimes. The thing about bodybuilding is that people put way too much weight in how big you are, when really what's more important are your proportions and your conditioning. So if you can build the proportions correctly and come into a show conditioned, you can win even if you're not the biggest person. Ooh, I love this one. How do you teach your kids to be non-restrictive when prep comes around? So we have different tactics for each kid because they have totally different needs. We have a 15-year-old boy who runs track and cross country. So our conversations focus a lot around how to fuel our workouts and what are sometimes foods versus what are all the time foods. So things like burger and pizza are fun and a great way to celebrate and a great way to connect socially. It's not a reward though. So when I say celebrate, it's definitely not a reward, but it's reserved for special occasions. It's not an everyday food or a I'm too tired to cook food, because food is to fuel our body ultimately. Yeah. And then with the girl, recently we've been talking more about body image stuff. She's parroting, she's not my child. I didn't birth these children. But I am fortunate to be in their lives. I've heard her parroting negative self-talk about her body, like saying that her thighs are big. She's a total beanpole though. But regardless of how her body looks, it doesn't matter what size her thighs are. So we talk a lot more about what our bodies are capable of. Running, jumping, playing on the trampoline, doing monkey bars, doing karate. We focus more on those things and celebrating our capabilities rather than making disparaging remarks about how things look. Ooh, let's go back to macros. How does one figure out what their macros should be? There are 1,000,001 calculators online. I really prefer the one on precisionnutrition.com. But the thing about macros is that you have to go into it knowing that it's giving you an estimation of where they should be. So take whatever the calculator gives you and use that as a starting point. Be consistent with that for like 3 weeks, see how your body responds, and start making adjustments from there. Again, depending on your goals, you may not be in a position where, you know, if the calculator tells you 2,000 calories, but you're gaining weight, maybe you need to bump it down to 1,800 and slowly work your way up. So maybe a fat loss phase isn't right for you right now because you kind of need to work on building your metabolism back up. Our metabolisms adapt. So although you may see a slight increase on the scale, ultimately your body's seeking homeostasis. It wants to keep it the same. So it's going to level out and you're going to naturally be increasing your activity as you're fueled more. That's one of the things about prep, and part of the reason why I love my Apple Watch is because it gives me a pretty good idea of what my NEAT is. Because the more activity I'm doing in the gym, in fast cardio and in my workouts and in other cardio sessions, my non-exercise activity thermogenesis kind of decreases. That's the fidgeting around, the talking with my hands. So all of that kind of increases when we begin fueling our bodies with enough. And we have to get to a point where we're eating enough and our energy levels are good and we're feeling healthy and strong before we can start removing food from our diet in order to enter a fat loss phase. And note how I say phase. We can't live in a deficit, you guys. Do you have some muscle groups that are harder mentally, and how do you work past that? Yes. Right now I have 2 arm days a week in my training protocol, and I really hate arms. I find it super boring. So one of the strategies that I've employed is that I give myself a timer. I've got an hour to get all of my arm exercises done and begin abs. Again, a way for the Apple Watch to come in super clutch, but I time my rest periods, whether on my watch or on my phone. And it really forces me to be super intentional during that workout. In a way, it's kind of like gamifying the experience of working out. So it kind of like increases the serotonin or the dopamine. I don't know which one is triggered by the gamified experiences, but it kind of increases that for me, and it gives me a mission because I just find arms so boring. Ooh, any tips on soft skin when shaving for comp? I get so many ingrowns. Yeah, exfoliate before you shave. Shave, especially in some of the more delicate areas, if you know what I'm saying. Shave in the direction of hair growth. Exfoliate again afterwards, and then moisturize several times a day. That's done me really well. I've never really had an issue with ingrowns, sometimes still in the more delicate area, but it's worked really well for me. And then just do a baking soda wash before you get the tan, so that your pH is neutralized and the tan doesn't turn a funky color on you. Can someone tell me why all the soft drinks in Texas are in styrofoam? It makes me feel like I'm killing the environment. Who do I think I am? Jeff Bezos? With my own hole in the ozone layer? Unbelievable. Oh, favorite part about bodybuilding / coaching. So, my favorite thing about bodybuilding is A, the personal growth, and B, I always have a goal. And when I'm in prep, my goal is to hit my protocol perfectly, nail my workouts, and shred down. Immediately post-show, my goal is to reverse carefully, follow the protocol, and start getting stronger again. And between the end of my reverse and the start of the next prep, my goal is to hit the protocol, grow as much as possible, and get strong. My favorite part about coaching is helping people see their own potential, helping people realize their own potential. I have a deep love for strength sports, and I love seeing that come alive in other people. How do I get myself out of a slump? I have no energy to go to the gym, but I want to. If you want to, lean into that. If you want to, then find a way to make it part of your routine. So maybe Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, it's just your routine to go after work. It's not negotiable. You already packed your gym bag, so you just get there. Period. Make it a non-negotiable. That's just one example. I don't know what your schedule is like. I don't know what your life is like, but don't rely on motivation. Learn how to be intentional about the habits that you're creating in your life. Period. And maybe sometimes what we need is a change in modality. So maybe if you've been just training for hypertrophy, you find that to be a little bit boring and not fulfilling, then maybe you need to set, again, some performance-based goals. Maybe you need to set some strength goals. Maybe you need to sign up for a cardio class, some kind of spin or hot yoga or an Orange Theory type class. You know, changing your modality can kind of refresh your mindset. How did you know you wanted to compete? When I started powerlifting, I learned that I have a deep love for competition. I'm a very goal-oriented person. So when my husband said that he wanted to do a show, I had been out of powerlifting for about 9 months. Well, I was 9 months post my last meet, and I was missing the thrill of competition. I wasn't overly excited about getting back into the USAPL, and the USPA tested federation wasn't really that big yet, so I didn't feel like there was a ton of competition. So the thought of starting a new sport was really exciting and invigorating to me in a time when I really needed something. I heard competing is expensive. About how much, if you don't mind sharing? The NPC card is like $100 here. I'll start tallying it on my calculator. First of all, your NPC card, $100. Show registration, $150. Anywhere, honestly, anywhere from $100 to $150. If you're cross competing, that doubles. So for me, that'd be another $150. Coaching, anywhere from $100 to $500 a month, depending upon who you hire. My coach, we've been with our coach for a really long time, so he doesn't charge us that much. If we do a 16-week prep, that's another $400. So we're at $800 already, and we haven't even gotten to show day. You can get a relatively affordable suit for $200. Heels are gonna be on the cheap end. We're looking at $40. If you hire a posing coach, you're looking at another couple $100. Why isn't this adding things up right for me? 400 plus, what else was it? Shoes, suit. If you're talking about show day specifically, again, you've got the tan for $100. Let's see, supplements and food. I don't even know how to begin tallying a monthly cost for that. I'm in a really fortunate position this season where I have been either an affiliated or a sponsored athlete. So that takes, honestly, a huge chunk out of it for me, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. But let's say if you go through a tub of protein and a pre-workout every month, let's say bare minimum, right? You're looking at another $100. So for a 16-week prep, that's another $400. What else? That doesn't even scratch the surface of the grocery bill, or depending upon where you're at in your journey, you may be cycling some gear, which again comes with a pretty hefty price tag. So I mean, right now we're sitting at $1,600, and that's just for a 16-week prep, non-inclusive of the grocery bill or a gym membership. So then you also have to factor in travel though. Like, we'll be traveling for all 2 or 3 of our shows this year, depending on how that goes. One of them is going to include airfare and probably a week worth of hotel stay, Uber trips, grocery trips. So it can get upwards of $3,000, $4,000 pretty freaking quick. What music do you listen to when you work out? I listen to the same getting to be 30-year-old metal that I've always been listening to. Sometimes I get really tired of it though. A lot of times, honestly, I just have my AirPods in on noise cancellation mode, and I just listen to whatever our gym members have selected. A lot of Bad Bunny gets played. A lot of Pop Smoke. Dude, can we stop playing Pop Smoke in the gym? Whatever. How did your husband land you? We met on Tinder. We had a lot of mutual interests. We liked the same kind of music, and we both went to the gym. Got a couple workouts together. We were really good pals for about a year before I met his kids, and we decided to move in together and take things to the next level. Yeah, that's how he landed me. Ooh, what's the difference between a coach and a personal trainer? For starters, a personal trainer can take you through workouts, often have a certification through something like NASM or ISSA, ACE, whatever. They have the little letters CPT after their name, probably in their Instagram bio. And again, those are great, but pretty limited knowledge there and limited amount of practical application. A coach, on the other hand, will often, sometimes, but not always, be a nutritionist, occasionally a registered dietitian if they've gone to, you know, like a 4-year institution type place. But a coach will touch on more lifestyle considerations. They usually do a meal plan in addition to your training. And a lot of times, especially in this day and age, it's remote. So kind of these days, I think of a personal trainer as somebody that you go and see in person, and a coach is somebody potentially online that you work with beyond just how do I do my workouts. You know what I mean? How did you get so knowledgeable about supplements / powders and what and when to take them? A lot of it is honestly just natural curiosity. Very curious about these things. Want to know how to apply these things. Want to be able to practice these things. Want to try these things. So a lot of times, like, I'll have an ailment. Like, for instance, I'm struggling to sleep. So I start to look into, first of all, my habits are way more important than any kind of supplement I'm taking. Supplements are at the top of the pyramid, and other things are at the base. So at the base, the things that we need to nail first before we add supplements are things like training, nutrition, sleep and sleep hygiene. And then we can get into more specific things like, oh, I have this ailment, I'm struggling to sleep or to get good quality sleep. I make sure that my sleep hygiene is on point, like I put my phone down, I have a wind down routine, I turn the lights dim, I'm not drinking caffeine after noon, and I'm still struggling to get quality sleep. Then I look into what supplements can aid me there. So that's kind of the gist of that. Well, guys, I think that wraps up this Instagram Q&A session. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have more questions, leave them down below. Maybe I'll pop them into another Q&A style video. Maybe I'll break it down into a little bit more organization. We're on a learning curve here, so be gentle with me, okay? And until the next time, I love you so much.